Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, late Friday night in Mike Norvell in Florida State. They go on the road to Virginia in what we knew was a little bit of a trap game, right? You got Miami next week. You're going to Virginia on a Friday night, and they get got. And here's the biggest takeaway that I have is, Dill, this Florida State team, it's way different from the team that we saw in 2024. They got an offense that can score with anybody in the country. That defensive front seven, it's just not good enough. When you want to be a top 10 team in the country, when you want to compete for the college football playoffs, you got to have difference makers in the front seven. That was always a little bit of the concern. We talked about it earlier in the week. There's so much to like about this Florida State football team, but you look in the front seven, specifically on the defensive line, and say, hey, who's the top 50 NFL draft pick? Everybody else who's going to be in the college football playoffs, they have a guy. I don't know if Florida State has that guy. You saw that play out Friday night against Virginia. The inability to stop the run, the inability to get after the passer with your front four. Dill, we talk about it all the time. I'm sorry I'm going along with my intro. We talk about it all the time in the offseason. It is so hard to find difference makers on the defensive line in the front seven going to the portal. If you want guys at that position group, you damn well better get them at the high school ranks. Florida State flat out hasn't, and you saw that show up Friday night against Virginia. Again, I'll stress this, that this is still a very good football team that has some good football and had them in 2025, but you saw some of the problems with how Mike Norvell has run this program over the last couple of years. It caught up to them Friday night against Virginia. Dill, I'm going to get to the Florida State fans. Hey, one, the support this program and the fan base shows the boys. It's amazing. Would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section. I'm frustrated because I picked Florida State in this football game too. Dill, I'll give you the T-box. What went wrong the most for Florida State here on a Friday night?
You said it. You just can't play a whole game like that and not create any negative plays with your front
Yeah,
four. And that you can probably extend that to their linebackers because
yeah,
I think just talent to talent, you
yeah.
kind of look at this roster and say, well, they probably don't have it. Like to their front four, they need to start recruiting that position a little
Yeah.
bit better, developing up
It,
through the high school
it,
ranks a little bit better. I'm a little disappointed they couldn't find something creative to get these linebackers
yes.
involved, or at least like create some free rushers, do something because they really, especially on third downs, I mean, they were really just getting picked apart.
That was probably the second biggest disappointment on the night. Is hey, I think Tony White's an awesome defensive coordinator, and I thought it was very clear early on in this football game that Florida State could not make it happen with their front four. There just didn't really seem to be those adjustments. I go back and watch that game against Alabama week 1. Tony White was super creative, giving a lot of different fronts, a lot of different looks, bringing pressure from different areas. Dill, why didn't we see that against Virginia? Like, you're just letting Chandler Morris have clean pockets, throw the football whenever he wants. Still,
Especially once you knew that your front four, like again,
yes, became
there's
very
no
clear.
fixing that in the moment. Like they're just not good enough probably
Yeah.
right now to be that team. You got
Yep.
to try to dial up something because it did feel too easy at
And then
times.
here's the other part. It's just not deep enough. When Virginia was staying on the football field, those first two drives of the second half, you could just tell. I mean, that Florida State defense, they don't have enough guys to rotate. I'm pretty sure both the Sear brothers, who are going to be very good football players for Florida State, by the way. I mean, you had two true freshmen on the road here in their, fourth college football game of their career. They both probably logged almost 50 snaps in that football game. What does that tell you? We don't have enough guys that we trust to play significant amounts of football.
And
You
honestly,
saw
it's
that.
typically okay because Florida State's offense, the way they can run the ball
Well,
and kind of possess on the other
but
side,
the
like
thing
there is
is,
that
though, they run
athlete.
with pace still. Like, Florida State's offense runs with pace, so Virginia's going to have a lot of snaps if you want it. That's what made Tennessee so special last year. They could run with that pace, but they had 12 defensive linemen that they could rotate and keep fresh. If you want to run with pace on offense and it works, you score a lot of points, you damn well better be sure that you have the depth on defense, specifically on the defensive line, to hold up with that pace. And Florida State flat out didn't in this football game. Sorry. You
Well,
take it away.
I mean, it really does come down to getting off the field. I mean, they had enough chances. They had
Yep.
enough third and down or third in like down and distances that
Yeah.
you got to be getting off, and they just weren't.
Yep.
And again, if you're going to be a thin defensive line, you got to be better on third down and
Yeah.
especially fourth down because when you put those together,
Yeah.
that's not a really clean game in those moments.
Yeah, in regulation, I think Virginia was 7 of 11 on third downs, 2 of 2 on fourth downs. Just simply not good enough. Here's the other storyline. You can't go on the road on a Friday night. And you look when you're Florida State, and then when you combine that with being a top 10 team, you have to know you're going to get every team's best. And you have to be ready to play every single game, no matter who you got on the schedule next week. You went on the road here and just shot yourself in the foot repeatedly in the first quarter and a half of this, or first full quarter of this football game. Right? You put together a nice drive on your first drive. They only punted one time, Dill. They punted on that first drive when they took an offensive pass interference call. That wasn't a very good call, at least in my opinion. But you shot yourself in your foot. You moved back. You had to punt. And then you turn the football over. You turn the football over twice. One time inside Virginia's 5, going down to score a touchdown. You can't go on the road and play that poorly in the first quarter, because then guess what starts happening? Like, Virginia starts believing they can win this football game. That crowd gets a little bit more involved. You have to come out and execute and be ready to play more than Florida State was tonight in this football game.
Because you're probably right. I mean, they had their chance early in that game, and like even that
Yeah,
drive right before the end of the half, like you get that turnover, you'd like to be able to go convert that into something. To me, like
sure.
you probably had your chance to step on them a little bit in the first half,
Yep.
and you just didn't do it. And then again, like at the end of the day, I don't want to like make that the storyline, because at the
No.
end of the day, it was kind of what we just started with, like
Yeah.
that defensive line. You need more out of them. You need to figure out a way to create some negative plays. But you are right. I mean, that's why this is like a disappointing loss. I feel like there are multiple ways Florida State had, or
Yeah.
multiple chances you probably
Yeah, I
had.
mean, the offense kind of had to be perfect here. Virginia damn near scored 50 points, right? And so the Florida State offense was good, and they were moving the football, and they were running the ball and being explosive, but they weren't perfect, right? I mean, Gus Malzahn dials up a perfect screen. I believe that was in overtime. That would have gone for a touchdown. Tommy Castellanos throws a bad ball. Gavin Sawchuk drops it. You end up settling for a field goal. Score a touchdown there, you might win that football game. Obviously, that one that we just saw to Deuce Robinson, that was a beautiful ball by Tommy. Can't bobble that. I mean, you saw a couple of miscues on offense, but really, Dill, and this Florida State offense is good. And here, I mean, you want to look at it, and we probably haven't given Virginia enough of their dues, because I think Taylor at running back, he can run the rock, and I think Chandler Morris can rip the pill around the field. They made a lot of plays, but this definitely felt like, number one, Florida State making too many mistakes. Number two, the glaring weakness that we kind of saw at times, it was on full display. Just that defensive line not being good enough. Here's the other conversation, though. What are your expectations for Florida State moving forward in the season?
Yeah, and that's where like they're probably going to be a competitive team for the ACC title. I think I
Yes.
look at Miami.
Yeah.
I don't know that the gap is particularly close right now.
Well,
Like the way they're playing up front with their front seven,
yeah.
and the way Miami can play with their offensive line and that rushing
Yeah.
attack, I think unless something changes or they find some way to create some negative plays, be a little bit more aggressive, like
Yeah.
I just don't see how you beat that Miami team.
My
So again,
biggest
like they'll be
concern
able to
is,
play with anybody else in the league for sure. But like, what
well,
do they
that's
do?
the dude. That in my opinion, the way I look at it, that's the thing, is I think Florida State's going to have a chance to win a lot of football games over the next couple of weeks, right? Because they got an offense that going to keep them in every single football game. I look at that game against Miami next week, and we can already just do a little bit of a preview for it right now. I look at it and say, Miami's got one of, if not the best offensive lines in the country. Florida State's defensive line got their tails whipped for the last 60 minutes. What do you think it's going to look like next Saturday night? Right? That's my biggest concern. If Florida State can't figure out a way to deal with that rushing attack that Miami's going to come on the road with, it's going to be a problem. And here's the other thing is, you don't want to get down in these football games, man, because you can tell Tommy's not super
Yeah.
comfortable just dropping back and throwing the football. Honestly has been much better than I expected in terms of throwing the football on the year. But when you're asking him to just drop back and not really have a run game to lean on, not really have play action to lean on, the pocket presence definitely leaves a little bit to be desired. He's very quick to drop the eyes, get outside. And I'm not putting this on Tommy, because
No,
I
because
thought
he
this.
runs their like again, like he runs their offense at an extremely high level. I
Yes.
mean, I thought like for the most part he was really, really good. But you are right, like situationally, this is not a team that can play behind two scores because
Yeah.
they need to be able to have that running game. And even like that fourth quarter drive, I should say, to tie it up, like I don't want to say it was lucky, but like it wasn't a particularly clean outing out there. Like
You
you
don't
had to
want
really kind of
Tommy. You don't want Tommy living in those situations. That's 100% dang sure. Here's one of the last concern that I have is it does kind of feel like Deuce Robinson or bust right now in the passing attack. And Deuce Robinson is that guy, man. Even I know he had that drop that could have tied the game up. Regardless of that, Deuce Robinson came up with a lot of big plays for Florida State in a lot of different ways. Who else? Like when Virginia, especially in that red zone situation, started putting that safety right over shading on Deuce Robinson, it didn't really have a ton of trust that
Because
other
you were
guy.
only you almost had that, like, famous Calvin Johnson, 2 guys lined up
It was
right on
getting
him. That's
there.
basically how they were playing Deuce
Yeah.
Robinson. You're right, like, you gotta Squirrel White's gotta be able to win a one-on-one matchup down there in the red zone. That
Yeah.
just you probably need that second guy to be there because you have play like, again, like, Mekhi Danzy for what he does, he gets the job done. I thought
Yeah.
Pittman played a really nice game, really good blocker, obviously, made a couple of big catches. But in terms of, like, real dependable
No,
one-on-one
there's
winning wide
nobody.
receivers, you don't have anyone else.
Yeah. And Squirrel White just didn't seem like he was even on the football field all that much. Here's the thing going forward for Florida State, and this is probably where I'll end it. And we'll do another deep dive, but we'll rewatch it, talk about this again. You have to rely on these defensive backs more to come up and stop the run. And I think here's maybe one of the problems. You had that one game against Alabama, and you played really well and you beat Alabama. And I ain't trying to take that one away because Florida State did that. That was a legit win they had. Then you didn't really get a feel what your team was the last two games. And then you went into this game maybe thinking you could stop the run with a lighter box and not really get your safeties involved. And it turns out you can't. So now Tony White's got a little bit more information on his personnel and saying, hey, probably not good enough in the front seven. Like Earl Little should be inside the tackle box pretty damn consistently going forward for Florida State because he's a hammer coming up and fitting the run. I'll die with my defensive backs on islands, but I can't watch another couple of drives like we saw just now with Virginia just running the football, 11 out of 12 plays and just running the football right down your throat. You can't live like that, especially on the road. You got to figure out a way. Hey, the defensive line ain't just going to snap their fingers and get way better, right? You kind of got to accept this is a weak part of our football team. How do you fix it? I think you got cornerbacks that can hold up. And so maybe ask them to hold up on the boundary. You bring in some defensive backs and say, hey, we go and put numbers in the box, and we ain't going to let teams run the football on us like Virginia just did. Because, that's how they have to play Miami. If you try to play Miami with a light box, they just go and run 6 yards of carry and win that football game. All right, we'll sign out. Frustrating loss for the Florida State fans. Again, would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section. As always, the Florida State fans, appreciate you guys. Y'all continue to show a ton of support, whether they're winning games, losing games. So appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.